Well, hi there. Welcome back to You Can Linux. We're just on, here, I'll back out of the slideshow. We're back on Solus again, just because I was too lazy to change out the distro. And honestly, this distro comes with LibreOffice right out of the box, so I didn't really need to change distros. So, we'll get this started. This little presentation is called You Can Do This. Because you can. I believe in you. And this is a little bit of a crash course in Linux, and I also made it because I want to encourage you. I think that anyone who can read or is even a little bit capable of learning to do anything can run Linux on their PC. All right. So what's happening? Why? There's actually a specific reason, and you can see it here on the screen. Windows 10 is end of life, October 14th, 2025. The date I am recording this is October 12th, 2025. That's in 2 days. Windows 11 requires TPM 2.0, leaving behind perfectly functional hardware. If your computer was made in the last 10 to 15 years, it's probably going to work just fine for most everyday tasks. I'm sorry, like a computer from 10 years ago, especially if it was a top of the line computer from 10 years ago. If you have a computer with a fucking 1080 Ti, you're good, man. You should be good for the foreseeable future. Right, because there are still people out there rocking 1060s. It's ridiculous that they're doing this. They say it's for security, but I really don't think it is. And also, Windows 11 sucks anyway. And to tell you the truth, Windows 10 wasn't much better. Okay, Windows 10 is still Windows, and Windows sucks, in my humble opinion. Okay? I just like the way Linux works way better. Okay, next I want to talk about what do we do. We can stay on Windows 10. I would not advise this. I heard a long time ago that people who stayed on Windows XP after the end of life for Windows XP were the low-hanging fruit for anybody who wanted to get into their computer. And the same will be true of Windows 10. There's going to be security holes in your computer, and oh man, if you use your computer for banking and you're still on Windows 10, I feel so bad for you, man. Your shit's gonna get hacked. And I don't mean to laugh at you. It sucks. It really does. I mean, you could also finagle a Windows 11 install. There's a way to do it with, like, this program called Rufus that I heard of. I don't know the details. I don't want to know the details. I don't care. But see, here's the thing. When you finagle your Windows install like that, you just know Microsoft is going to swoop in and fuck your computer over with an update. They're going to be on that shit, man. They are going to just destroy your install. I can see it now. 6 months from now, everybody who installed Windows 11 using that little Rufus hack on a computer that doesn't have that TPM 2.0 module, they're going to be like, oh my god, my computer doesn't work anymore. Oh my god, I can't log in. Or oh my god, all my data's gone. I can just see it now. And I'm not gloating. That is so shit. That is terrible. And honestly, it's criminal what Microsoft is doing. You can also buy new hardware, but that creates such a mountain of e-waste. This whole Windows 11 transition is going to be a disaster for the environment. Regardless of how many people I can convince to switch to Linux, there's going to be so many people. Like, for every person I convince, there's going to be like 20 million people who just throw away their computer. And that's shit. That sucks. And I hate it. I will say, even if you do buy a new computer, you have an opportunity, all right? You have an opportunity to have a backup computer running Linux. Hey, little pitch there. Come on, little salesman pitch. But this is a Linux channel, and you know what I'm going to say. Just make the fucking switch already, okay? Microsoft constantly abuses you. They don't respect your rights. They don't respect your privacy. They don't respect anything about you. All they want is your money. You know, that's why they stuff Windows 11 full of ads. And also why they started stuffing ads into Windows 10. You know, the ad thing didn't start with Windows 11. It was already there in Windows 10. So, yeah, just do it. Just make the switch. Some caveats. Linux is not Windows. And that's a good thing. Windows sucks. I hate that you have to go out and hunt for your software, that you have to hunt for an exe, you know, on a bunch of different websites. I hate that you have to let Microsoft turn off your computer at fucking random when you're in the middle of something. You know, and that's like really galling. That never happens on Linux. Even when it tells you, hey, you need to restart your computer, it lets you keep working and shut your computer down at your leisure. Now, some software will not work with Linux. If you're using the Adobe suite, oh dear God, I feel so bad for you. Adobe's even worse than Microsoft. But, you know, that, again, that might go with, you know, you having to buy a new computer. If you buy a new Windows computer, or even if you switch to Mac for your Adobe suite, you know, you can always have that second computer that you do everything else on, and that actually might be better for your work-life balance. You have your Linux computer that you do everything else on, and then you just have like a MacBook or a Mac Studio or even a new Windows 11 computer, and that's your work computer. You only do the Adobe Creative Suite on that, or you only do the, what's the alternative? Corel. You only do the Corel stuff on that computer. You know, and then there you successfully separate your work life from the rest of your life. Yeah. Some hardware won't work with Linux. So if you want to run Linux on your hardware, let's say you're running a laptop, the best thing you can do for your laptop is to Google the model of the laptop and Linux. The laptop I'm running right now is a Lenovo Legion. Out of the box, this particular laptop has 2 hard drives. It has a 128 gigabyte SSD and a 1 terabyte spinning hard drive. So what they did at the factory was they put it in a thing called RAID, which made the computer see it all as one hard drive. And Linux didn't really like that, but all I had to do was go into the BIOS, and there will be instructions on how to do things, right? All I had to do was go into the BIOS and disable that. And if I'll explain the BIOS stuff later, but you know, so sometimes it's a simple fix like that, and believe me, that is simple. It sounds complicated because you might not know what a BIOS is, right? BIOS is basic initializing operating system. It's what comes up and starts up your computer and loads the operating system, right? It's okay. It's okay. You can do this. Don't be scared. And you probably have a little bit of time. If you're watching this today, October 12th, you know, you have a little time to go around and experiment. You know, not just 2 days, because like the Windows 10 won't magically just stop working after October 14th. You'll have a little bit of time, but you do need to get on this. Okay, don't just put it off. Don't just think, oh, I'll have plenty of time. You do need to get on it, but you'll have a little bit of time to figure things out. Some things to consider. Maybe don't dual boot. Sorry. So if you've been anywhere near Linux communities, you'll probably have heard of people who dual boot between Windows and Linux. I'm going to recommend against that because there's lots of little things you got to keep track of. One thing I remember being told was Linux and Windows by default handle the system clock differently, and you have to set one or the other to the way the other does it. Otherwise, they'll like fight over it each time each one starts up. Excuse me, hold on. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. But they'll kind of fight over the system clock if you don't change that setting. And there's just a whole bunch of other little stuff, especially with Windows. Windows does not want to be dual booted. Windows will happily delete your Linux partitions on updates. I've heard so many horror stories of that happening before. So yeah, maybe consider not dual booting. You may need to distro hop. Sometimes things work differently on different distros, and I'll explain what distro is later. You might have to do what's called distro hopping, which is where you try out different Linux distributions. Okay? It's fine. Everybody does this. Usually, it's fine. You don't have to worry about it. It's easy. Basically, every Linux distribution is distributed for free unless it's for like enterprise use, and you don't want an enterprise distro. That's for boring work stuff. You want to have fun, right? Right? I know you want to have fun. You will mess up, and that's okay. You know, actually, I forgot to tell this story last video when I covered Solus. When I was running Solus, it was on this shitty little HP laptop from 2013, and I was having audio issues, so I was like experimenting with like some group things, and I accidentally removed myself from the sudo group, so I revoked my own sudo privileges. What is sudo? Sudo stands for, I think it was super user do, but other people have disputed that. But it's basically the same thing as running a program as administrator on Windows. And you need sudo for like installing software, for updating the system, basically any administrative task. So yeah, I basically screwed myself, but I will say that was an easy fix. What I had to do was boot into the live CD. I'll explain what a live CD is in a minute as well. I booted into the live CD and edited the text file on my hard drive, and all was good. So yeah, even some of the stupidest mistakes you make, a lot of the times those will be recoverable, right? And the final thing I want you to consider is back up everything, okay? Do not just assume it'll be saved. When you install Linux on a computer, depending on what you choose with the installer, it will completely delete everything on your computer. So back that up on an external hard drive or a thumb drive or a bunch of thumb drives, whatever you have. Just do it, okay? I don't want you to lose anything. Just be careful with that. You know, I know I'm bad with backups. You know, the old adage with that is, if it's not in at least 3 places, it doesn't exist. And that is so true. So please please be careful with your data. Make sure you save it. Alright, so who am I? Who am I to be telling you to use Linux? I'm just some guy. I live in West Virginia, and I've lived here all my life. I'm just a guy. Just a guy. It's funny. I don't think of myself as having an accent, but I've been clocked at least a couple times in my life as being from West Virginia because of my accent. That's strange to me. It's one of those things where, like, if you're a fish swimming in water, you don't really consider the fact that the water exists. But, like, logically, I know there's an accent when I speak. I just don't feel it, you know? I do have a history degree. I have a bachelor's in history from a local university. I'm not a developer. I can't program worth shit. I've tried before. I cannot fucking do it. Okay? I don't work in tech at all. I work in a healthcare related field. I'm not a doctor or anything. Again, history degree, but I do not work in tech. Okay? I do use computers at work, but it's for, like, you know, medical logging and stuff. It's not anything really tech related. I'm basically the equivalent of someone using spreadsheets at the office. That's the level of technical work I'm doing with computers at work. Okay, I might as well be somebody doing spreadsheets in an office. What do I do at home on my computer? I write, I play games, I watch things, and I also make these videos. These videos are very simple to make. I do them basically in one take. Very minimal editing, if any editing at all. I do want to be honest with these videos, so you see all the mistakes. I don't edit those out. I make sure you see all the failures. You see the things I did to fix those failures. And you see when I don't figure out how to fix the failures. Because I want you to know what you're getting into. You know, I've talked this stuff up, but it's really not all sunshine and rainbows. Alright, so keep that in mind as well. But, you know, that's what I use this for. Now, if you use your computer for audio work, or graphic design, or advanced video editing, I mean, I'm going to talk about those later, but keep in mind, I don't do those things, so I'm not an authority. When I mention, like, a video editor to you, that's going to be something that maybe you can try. That's not going to be me recommending this because I've used it and it worked for me. Okay, so here's my Linux story. I started using Linux on a Chromebook with Crouton. Crouton was a program back in the day. It's a dead project now because Chrome OS started including a Linux virtual environment in there, and they felt like they didn't really need to continue with that project anymore. But it was a really neat thing because you could install a proper Linux distro alongside Chrome OS, and then when it ran, you could, like, switch between them with, like, a little keyboard combination. It was really neat. And like I said, that project is dead. And there's another reason the project is dead, because Chrome OS will be switching over to Android very soon, if it hasn't already. So there will be no more Chrome OS. There will just be laptops and tablets with Android on them. Well, I guess there were already Android tablets, but you know what I mean. There's not going to be any more Chrome OS tablets. Which is kind of sad, because back in the day, the things that Google were doing with Chrome were actually pretty cool. And it's kind of sad to see what Google has become, but I can't say I'm surprised anymore. And I wish I could have said I wasn't surprised back then, because that was some cool shit, and they just have squandered all of it. They've squandered all of their goodwill, and you should not trust Google. The only reason I don't run a Linux phone, a proper Linux phone, because technically Android does run on top of the Linux kernel. I'll have to explain that later as well. Technically Android does run on top of the Linux kernel, but it doesn't follow any of the design principles of Linux or any of the, open source philosophy. Not anymore. It used to. Google is slowly crushing that. And I wish that they had lost control of Android. I wish they had lost control of Chrome. I wish nobody had any control over those. Whoever controls Android and Chrome has too much power. Okay? Nobody should have that power. I also started using experimenting with Linux with an old laptop from 2003. This thing would not run Ubuntu. And I'm not talking mainline Ubuntu. I'm talking like Lubuntu. I'm talking about Xubuntu, the lightweight ones. Barely anything worked. It had like an external network card for Wi-Fi. And I eventually did get that laptop working with Debian 8 Jessie. And I had to install like a special kernel module. It was really convoluted. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. And then I did switch to Linux full-time in 2016. I remember that because it was on my birthday. So what happened was I was on that old HP laptop from 2013, and it tried to update, and the update forked itself. And looking back on it, I think that was an unauthorized attempt to move me to Windows 10. And I was on Windows 8.1. It came with Windows 8 from the factory. I lost basically everything that wasn't on the top level of the C drive. So, if it was in there were GOG games I had installed, and their folders were still there, everything else was gone. And that was so fucking terrible. I was afraid to even update again. It stayed on Windows, it was back on Windows 8, because it basically factory resetted. And I stayed on Windows 8 until I moved to Linux. Funny story, I actually did try to dual boot on that laptop, but it didn't work, and I was like, sucks to be you, Windows, and I just blew everything off. I just nuked and paved. Yeah, I remember the day, because that was the day Ubuntu 16.04.1 released. And that was my birthday. And that was what I did for my birthday. I installed Ubuntu Mate 16.04.1 on my laptop. And and I've not looked back since. I did experiment with Linux on various other devices. There was this thing called a Pocket Chip that I had. Well, I still have it somewhere. I bought a couple little netbooks off eBay to experiment with those, because at that point the screen on my Chromebook had died, which is real funny because a year or two ago, I tried to see if I could fix the Chromebook, and the screen miraculously fucking worked just fine. I don't know what the fucking issue was 10 years ago, but the battery had died, so all I had to do was replace the battery and remove a little write protect screw to install a proper Linux distro. And I've kind of distro hopped around, because the issue with that Chromebook is it only has a 16 gigabyte hard drive, which I thought was soldered on, but its speakers crapped out, unfortunately, and I opened it up to see if I could fix that, and I realized the hard drive was removable, so I could have upgraded the little SSD module on it, but that was I found that out after I installed something I was happy with on it. It's currently running Debian 13, and I'm using that for like SDR and radio stuff. But I basically custom installed it with XFCE to use as little storage space as possible. And I think I got it down to like only taking up 3 gigabytes of space on that SSD for the OS. Pretty cool. Pretty cool, right? All the ladies and gentlemen are just fawning over me, telling me how smart and cool I am for that. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary pals, that's for sure. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to talk about on this slide. No. Okay, the takeaways from my story. You don't need a tech degree. I don't have one. You don't need to work in tech. I've never worked in tech. You don't need to be a hobbyist. I was a bit of a hobbyist back then, but like, I'm not really a technical person. I don't consider myself a technical person. When something goes wrong, more likely than not, I'm going to be like, okay, let's just try something else instead of fixing it, right? And finally, you just need to want to use, I should say, a computer with an operating system that doesn't spy on you, isn't stuffed full of ads, works good, and respects your freedoms. And that's what this is all about, folks. Microsoft doesn't care about you. In fact, I dare say they hate you. They hate you because you still have free will, and you're not just a money machine that puts cash in their pocket. That's how it is with these big tech companies. You know? Now, I know there's some corporate distros like Red Hat Enterprise Linux. They got bought by IBM, and now Fedora is kind of under them, but Fedora is supported by the community. I'm running Fedora right now. If it ever turns evil, I'll let you know. But for right now, Fedora is okay. And I understand if you don't want to run Fedora because it's corporate. There are other community-based distros that you can use. All right. So, some basic terms and things. So, live CDs. Okay, so live CDs, or you might hear them called live environments, live whatevers. They're generally called live CDs because we used to put them on CDs. You used to burn them onto CDs. Then it was DVDs, and then thumb drives became ubiquitous and large enough to hold them. So CDs kind of fell out of use because CDs only hold about 700 megabytes. DVDs hold about 4.4 gigabytes, 700 megabytes for CDs, 4.7 gigabytes for DVDs, and now you have like terabyte thumb drives. So yeah, usually you're going to be flashing this to a thumb drive using a program like Etcher or Rufus, or there's a few others, but generally you're going to want to use, what I recommend you use is Etcher, Balena Etcher. And what that does is you boot up your computer and you boot from the thumb drive, or if you do happen to be using a CD or DVD for whatever reason, I'm not going to judge, you would select that instead. But you boot from that, and then it boots you into what's called a live environment, where you can check and see if everything works. It works basically like it's the full operating system. And you can make sure everything works. You can use your computer while the operating system is being installed, which is really cool. So if something goes wrong and you need to reinstall, you can write an email being like, hey, I'm reinstalling my computer. I'm going to be unavailable for like an hour. That's another reason I hate Android. Actually, I hate phones in general because they're so fucking locked down. When my phone gets borked because of an update, I'm fucked. Okay, I have to send it back to get a replacement or get fixed. Okay, if my laptop borks itself, and as long as it's not a hardware issue, I can be back up and running inside of an hour. Okay, like, it is not hard to do. Okay, and now I did mention I was going to talk about, booting. Okay, so when you boot into a live environment, what you're going to want to do, when your computer starts up and you see like the logo for the company that manufactured the computer, for this little mini PC I'm running this on, that's GMK Tech. You might have a Lenovo or an HP or a Dell computer. If you're running a PC, it'll probably be your motherboard manufacturer. And if you're running a pre-built computer from a company like Dell, it'll just be a Dell logo. Usually it'll come up with press whatever button to go into the BIOS or for boot options. And sometimes it doesn't do that, but you can go ahead and just try things. Usually it's something like F12, one of the F keys, or like escape or something. And if you can't find it, you can just you can usually just Google the key you need to press. But just keep tapping that while the computer is turning on when you see the logo, and go into the BIOS and find the boot options, right? Or sometimes some motherboards or laptops or what have you will have an option to go in that directly, and you can just press that button and then just hit and just select which one you want to boot off of, whether that be the hard drive or the thumb drive, or again, if you're using CD or DVD, probably not, but if you are, you can just boot in using those, and and then you're golden. And you can also generally, if you're going into the BIOS, you're changing the boot order, which basically what that does is the computer looks for goes down a list of things to boot with. So like if the thumb drive or a CD or DVD is first in the boot order, it'll try to boot from that first, and if it doesn't find anything bootable from there, it'll go down to the next in line. So like if you select USB boot, it'll boot up from a thumb drive first if a boot thumb drive is inserted, and if there's not one there, it'll go down to the hard drive. Pretty simple once I explain it to you, right? Ugh, sorry. I don't have a drink right now. I should have gotten a drink. But yeah, no. So it's a pretty cool little thing. Okay. Now, for I should mention, this little mini PC, pretty neat little feature. It's pre-configured out of the box to boot off of a thumb drive, so I didn't even have to go into the BIOS for it. But yeah. So let me explain distro and distribution. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna hold off on that. I'm gonna pause the recording and I'm gonna go get a drink. Be right back. Drink has been acquired. I repeat, drink has been acquired. All right, so distro/distribution. Distro is short for distribution. So what is a distribution? So you may have heard me call this Linux. Well, Linux itself, like the project itself, that is just the kernel. What's the kernel? You don't really need to worry about that, but if you're curious, it's basically just the bit of software that interfaces with your hardware. So like if a program says, hey, I need some RAM, the kernel's like, here's some RAM. If it needs to do something with the hard drive, the kernel's like, oh, go here, So that's what a kernel is. And it also handles, other hardware that you might have attached to your computer, right? So, that in a nutshell is what a kernel is. And I'm sure that's a gross oversimplification, and somebody's going to be in the comments like, that's not what a kernel does. You said it too stupid. Well, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm talking to laymen. But, yeah, so a Linux distribution is just a full operating system that includes everything you need to actually use your computer, right? So generally, it'll be bundled with a desktop environment or a shell, and various utilities, various things that you need to use your computer, right? So, yeah, that in a nutshell is what a distribution does, and every distribution does things a little bit differently. All right. Otherwise, they'd just be supporting a distribution that already did what they wanted to do. Hopefully. There is such a thing as duplication of effort, and there's some projects that, maybe they didn't really need to exist, but hey, I'm not here to judge people. So, yeah. All right. Now, packages. What are packages? You might hear this a lot in Linux circles. A package, and I always say this, a package is a piece of software that's ready to be installed and used. All right. And you're still referred to it as a package when it's already installed. Okay. So that's all a package is. Just a piece of software that's ready to be installed and used. And then we get to desktop environment. What is a desktop environment? You're looking at it. A desktop environment is just an interface for you to use your computer. Well, okay, so a shell is an interface to use your computer, okay? A shell can also mean your terminal. So this is running bash, which stands for Born Again Shell. We'll get into the terminal here in a minute. But, yeah, so a desktop environment, it generally comes with a window manager that manages your windows, like this one. It comes with, software to handle sound. It comes with software to render whatever graphics you may put on the screen. It comes with software to manage your windows, like right here, or to show you the time, or to allow you to shut down and reboot the computer or log out. It also comes bundled with utilities like a file manager, for example. So, yeah, it's just a collection of software that makes it easier to, for fuck's sakes, that makes it easier to use your computer. Okay. Oh, shit. Okay. Spoilers! Sorry. Okay. So, yeah. Now, the Dread Terminal. And I say the Dread Terminal because everybody's like, I don't want to use a terminal. It's so hard. Okay, first of all, you're panicking over nothing. Okay, most of the time, you don't need to use the terminal. All right, long gone are the days when you needed to use the terminal to do anything. All right, here, I'll show you. So this is the Budgie Control Center. It's based on the GNOME Control Center, or the GNOME Settings app, whatever you want to call it. Here's the thing, all right, when you have an issue, a lot of the time, people will just give you a terminal command to try. Now, generally, what you do is just copy and paste that. I do recommend you Google, the commands to make sure it does what it says it does, so that you don't get anybody, telling you to sudo rm-rf or whatever. I forget the whole command. But basically, that command just wipes your entire hard drive. And it's so infamous that most modern, desktop distros, have safeguards against it. They know people try to prank other people like that. I mean, it's not really a prank when you're, like, deleting everything that somebody else has on their computer. I mean, that could be, like, their family photos, man. That's really shitty, but people do be doing that. But the reason they do that is, well, one, the terminal is actually the fastest way to get things done on your computer. And it's pretty much universal. I mean, Bash is basically ubiquitous, although there are some alternative terminal shells, like there's Fish, and I forget, Fish is the only one I remember. But, like, you know, Bash is pretty well ubiquitous, so 9 times out of 10, the person using the command will be able to use it, and it'll work. The problem with telling them how to do it on the GUI is a lot of the time they don't know if you're using GNOME or XFCE. XFCE has a completely different settings app to this. It does not look like that, right? How do I start the slideshow here? Help. Help. Start from current slide. There we go. Okay. Jesus Christ. I haven't made a slideshow in a long time. Like, not since I was in university. And I graduated like 10 years ago. Oh God, I'm getting old. Oh God. Oh. Anyway. But yeah, for most things, if all you have to do is go to the settings app and kind of hunt for the setting a little bit, but even that's not that hard. It's just like Windows. You go to Windows, you have to hunt for the settings, and even then, isn't it like a lot harder? Because I think like Windows has 3 different settings apps now, don't they? Like it's ridiculous. So yes, that is why people will tell you to copy and paste the command into a terminal, because that's just easier. But usually you don't need to do that. All right, you can use, all right. So yeah. All right, things you shouldn't have to worry about. Actually, I forgot something. Hold on. Hold on. There we go. Now what did I? Oh, fuck you. What did I? All right. Okay. What's the Shift plus F5? Okay, Shift F5. Current slide. Okay. Things you shouldn't have to worry about. Now, I say shouldn't have to worry about because you really shouldn't. And it's not that you won't have to worry about them. It's just, I don't think you should have to worry about it as an end user, as somebody who wants to use your computer. But sometimes you do end up having to worry about it, unfortunately. So, X11 versus Wayland. X11 is a display protocol. What does that mean? That means it's a standard so that somebody can write a display server. And what's a display server? A display server draws the windows on your screen. Okay? And X11 is ancient. It was made in like 1987, 1989. It predates Linux. It predates Linux. And we still have to fucking deal with it. Okay? I mean, the implementation of that protocol that everybody uses now is called Xorg. It's not that old. That's from like 2007, I believe. But it's in maintenance mode because of Wayland. Because Wayland is just, I'm sorry guys, it's just better. It's better. Oh my God. If people, X11/Xorg is spaghetti code, okay? I'm not a developer, but I've heard so many people who have actually worked on it say that. It's spaghetti code. It's not viable anymore. We need to move on. Mac OS used to use X11. You know when they moved away from it? 2005! And we're still dealing with this shit. What the fuck is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? But yeah, unfortunately, Wayland is still not quite there yet in some use cases. It really depends. A couple years ago, there was a big deal about it not being compatible with NVIDIA cards. NVIDIA cards are like the bane of fucking Linux. It's way better than it used to be because now NVIDIA's like mobile chipsets are in phones and they work with Linux because, you know, Linux is an Android. But no, Wayland came on the scene in, I think, 2007, and we are just now starting to transition. And even the NVIDIA stuff apparently is working now. I think I heard that at some point. Don't take my word for it. Make sure you double check for yourself. But like Linux Mint is still on X11 for Cinnamon. XFC is still on X11. They're working on a Wayland version, but they're still on X11. I'm pretty sure Mate is still on X11. And given what I've heard about their development, I'm not sure what they're doing about Wayland. GNOME and KDE, they are like at the forefront of Wayland development. They are on that shit, okay? Pretty soon you won't be able to use X11 with GNOME or KDE, right? And keep that in mind, because a lot of screen reader software on Linux relies on X11 for some fucking reason. Still, to this day, and it's like, well, you knew it was coming. You knew this was coming. People have been saying it for almost 2 decades, if I'm correct about Wayland having been started in 2007. Almost 2 decades. You didn't come up with a solution for Wayland. What is wrong with you people? Like, and that's not Wayland's fault. Okay, I brought a keyboard, and this is like a Microsoft. This is a really ancient keyboard. It's a Microsoft Wireless Comfort Keyboard 4000 that I use on my main laptop. And here's the thing, right? Okay, so it has like special hotkey buttons, right? Like there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 set of buttons and a star button, you know. And I was like, oh, how do I make those useful? And I looked it up, and there's a whole slew of keyboard customization software that doesn't work on Wayland because it relies on features that were in X11. I'm like, why is X11 handling my fucking keyboard? Why is my display server handling my fucking keyboard? And it's just, why? Why? That, you know, and people whine about the Unix philosophy. If you haven't heard about the Unix philosophy states, do one thing and do it well. X11 has protocols for a fucking print server. Why? Why? You might as well have protocol for the kitchen fucking sink included in there. Ooh. Sorry, that's my rant for their video. One of the rants. Sorry, this is just insane to me. But yeah, that's just something to be aware of. If you have issues with Wayland, sometimes you might still be able to fall back on X11. There is actually a project, not Xlibre. Xlibre is, I think, the one run by a Nazi, basically. Or was it Xfree? Maybe Xlibre is the good one. I don't know. There's like one that's trying to re-implement Xorg, and it's run by a Nazi. And then there's one that's basically just an emulator that's going to run on top of Wayland, from what I've read. So, yeah. All right, we got to move on. How long is this fucking video? 49 minutes, Jesus. So, Qt versus GTK. Okay, so these are just widget toolkits, okay? GTK stands for GIMP toolkit, basically like, you know, the GIMP, the GNU image manipulation program. It's not a fetish, and it's not a slur against disabled people. Okay, Cute doesn't really stand for anything. It's just a cute little name. Ah, see what I did there? Or what they did there a long time ago? Whatever. Okay, so GDK, the big desktop environment that you might know that uses GDK is GNOME, and the big one that uses Qt is KDE. Generally, you actually don't have to worry about this. It's just sometimes if you're using a GDK desktop like GNOME, Qt programs will look a little weird, and sometimes when you're using a Qt desktop like KDE, GDK apps will look a little weird. And that's it. Hopefully. Next we have GNU/Linux. You might hear this family of operating systems be referred to as GNU/Linux. Nobody cares except Richard Stallman, and he's like a terrible person, okay? Who cares? All right. There was some hullabaloo because GNU is like, they provide a lot of core utils for most of these operating systems and such. So it's like, oh, it's GNU/Linux. You don't have to worry about that. Nobody really cares that much. Again, except Richard Stallman. And if you're wondering why Richard Stallman is a terrible person, he once defended a friend of his who went to Epstein's Island. And when I first heard of this, I thought the email, this was an email that was leaked. I thought the email just said, oh, I don't think he'd do that. I know this guy. He's a friend. He wouldn't do such horrible things. But no, what he said in the email was, oh, even if he did do terrible things on Epstein's Island, well, it doesn't matter. They can consent. This guy is like, oh yeah, kids can consent. No, they can't. No, stop. He's also written an article in support of bestiality. Yeah, this guy's fucking crazy. This guy's crazy, okay? No. And, you know, there's this organization called the Free Software Foundation, that, you know, I've heard them called a dinosaur. Yeah, they're a dinosaur, but, like, God. So what happened was, basically, they decided to expel Richard Stallman from the board of the Free Software Foundation. And then, like, I think it was like 2 years later, literally at a conference called Libre Planet, out of nowhere, Richard Stallman announced that he would be back on the board. And like, there's a YouTuber named NCommander that made a really good video about this, because he actually worked with the FSF for a while, and he talked about how Richard Stallman just ran in, like, even disregarding all of his terrible political beliefs, he ran in there and fucked up the project he was working on. It's just awful. I can't believe they let that guy back on the fucking board. Just unbelievable. Unfucking believable. So yeah, don't worry about GNU/Linux. You can just say Linux. It doesn't matter. Okay. Next up, System D. Okay. Back when System D first launched in like 2010, there was a big controversy because, you know, it didn't work out of the gate, you know, but nowadays it's fine. It's usually pretty fine. Okay. Now, if you're having trouble with installing something or using it, and you can trace the problem back to System D, there are other operating systems that don't use System D. And if you're wondering what System D is, it's an init system. What's an init system? It's the software that starts up your operating system, right? So it goes, you know, bootloader/BIOS, and that starts up the init system. And the init system makes sure your operating system loads up correctly, right? Actually, funny story, that Chromebook I have, it won't run anything without System D. And that's really funny to me. It does not like System D list distros, such as MX Linux and Antix. And finally, 32-bit versus 64-bit. You will have to worry about this, okay? 32-bit, I don't think there's been a 32-bit, like, full PC, like, full x86 PC come out since, like, 2007, 2008. So if your computer's, like, from 2010 or later, unless, actually, there might have been, like, little netbooks that were 32-bit, so watch out for those. Those probably aren't very pleasant to use anyway, but, I mean, double check on those. But if your computer is, like, from, like, 2010, I think maybe you're going to be fine. But if you do have a really old PC that runs a 32-bit processor, just be aware Linux is starting to move on. Even Debian is. And I thought that Debian was going to stay on 32-bit, was going to keep supporting 32-bit until the Linux kernel itself dropped 32-bit support. But, you know, the thing is, there is that whole 2038 issue that 32-bit x86 processors have to worry about, where it's like, it has something to do with Unix time. I'm not going to get into that. But, yes, no, just, but yeah, no, just, if your computer runs a 64-bit processor, you're good. You're golden. And it probably does, if it's from the last 10 to 15 years. Alright. So, let's get into major desktop environments. Now, I have heard a lot of people say you should recommend desktop environments and not distros. So, I'm going to start with desktop environments instead of distros. So, the common ones that are pretty well ubiquitous are going to be GNOME, KDE, Mate, XFC, and LXQt. GNOME is it can be very weird and off-putting to newcomers. Don't count it out just because it's a little weird. In fact, that may help you realize, that may help train your brain to think, okay, I need to do things differently on this computer. The old Windows stuff won't work, right? So, you know, GNOME, and I will say, I like GNOME. I don't like some of the things that the GNOME Foundation does. It's an old joke that, you know, GNOME ships with less features every version, or that, you know, they realized that most of their development resources went to developing GNOME Shell, which is the actual, like, interface part of GNOME, the GNOME desktop environment. So they decided to stop supporting GNOME Shell. Just, you know, so, yeah, but, yeah, I like GNOME. I use GNOME on my, I'm using GNOME on my laptop here. And that's a pretty common one. KDE. So GNOME is pretty simple. They try to simplify it. There are ways to, like, customize it. They're called extensions. They're pretty easy to install. Although if you have a lot of them, that might degrade your performance. Just be careful what you install, basically. But KDE is like the opposite. It is like so customizable that people have complained about having too many options, right? But it's really not that bad. KDE, if you have a Steam Deck, is also the desktop environment used on SteamOS's desktop mode. Now, the next one is Mate. GNOME didn't always look like it does today. It used to look like Mate, and that's because Mate was a fork of GNOME 2. GNOME 2, you know, they changed a lot of things going from GNOME 2 to GNOME 3. And this was back in like 2010, 2009, 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. that they changed over, and a lot of people were like, I don't like GNOME 3. So some developers got together and developed Mate as a fork of GNOME. What's a fork? Well, you kind of should have, I won't say should have, you probably got that from what I just mentioned. When you don't like what a project is doing, you can fork it and do your own thing. Actually, the program I'm using right now, LibreOffice, is itself a fork of OpenOffice. By the way, don't use OpenOffice, use LibreOffice. It's not fucking 2010 anymore. LibreOffice is so much better. What happened there is basically LibreOffice forked from OpenOffice, and they could take improvements from OpenOffice, but because of the way the licensing worked, OpenOffice couldn't take improvements from LibreOffice. So yeah, everybody just kind of moved over to LibreOffice. And last I heard, there was like one person working on OpenOffice, and all he was doing was like going into the source code and removing spaces. Yeah, and the sad fact of the matter is OpenOffice has a lot more mind share, a lot more people know what OpenOffice is. And so they go download OpenOffice and they're like, oh, this sucks. And they drop it and they go back to Microsoft Office because, oh, I can't, OpenOffice doesn't work. That's because you're using the wrong thing. Use LibreOffice. It drives me nuts. And then we have XFCE, which is very stable, very lightweight desktop environment. Mate is a pretty lightweight one too. And all of these are way more lightweight than whatever you get on Windows. But compared to GNOME and KDE, these are both pretty lightweight, especially XFCE. XFCE, now their development does go at a glacial pace. I think I mentioned last video that that there was a point in time where there weren't any updates coming out from XFCE for like years, and people started to think it was a dead project, and then it came back with a announcement of a new update, and everyone's like, oh my god, you're still alive. And then of course we've got LXQt. LXQt is a merger of the LXDE and LXQt communities. And this is a pretty common one. It's also like super lightweight. In fact, it's a little bit more so than XFCE. And it uses Qt much like KDE. LXDE, of course, used to use GDK, and they switched to Qt because, you know, Qt was lighter. Lighter on resources, I should say. And of course, now we get into the less common and historical. Cinnamon is mostly a Linux Mint thing, but other distros do offer Cinnamon versions. I know for a fact Ubuntu does. I think Fedora does too. So you can find it. It's just less common. People think of it as a Linux Mint thing. This is their flagship, you know, desktop, but Linux Mint does have other desktop environments that they ship with. Then we have Budgie. That's actually what I'm running right now on this install of Solus. This is again a Solus thing. This is, I mean, it's kind of not. They are kind of separated a little bit, but it started on Solus, and Solus is, you know, has that as their flagship desktop. Budgie is going through a transition right now. They are trying to move from GTK to Qt, much like LXQt, but that has not happened yet to my knowledge. And I'm not sure when that'll happen. So yeah. LXD, I already mentioned. This is a super lightweight desktop environment based on GDK, and of course, you know, LXDE merged with RazorQt to create LXQt. I think they kept LXDE around as like a legacy environment, and it might still be maintained, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Unity absolutely is a one distro thing. Like, other distros have it. It's nowhere near ubiquitous. Like Cinnamon Budgie, people think of those as like a Linux Mint and a Solus thing. Unity was a canonical / Ubuntu thing. And it kind of still is. There's Ubuntu Unity now. And it's kind of sad because I really liked Unity back in the day. I liked the way it looked and felt. But now it's still alive, kind of, sorta, but not really. It used to be that when you thought of like Ubuntu, you thought of Unity. That's what Ubuntu looked like. It just had Unity. And that's kind of sad that they kind of just left it in the dust. Ubuntu switched back to GNOME because they started out using GNOME 2 for their mainline distribution with other flavors with different desktop environments attached. And then they switched to Unity when the GNOME 3 thing happened. And then in 2017 they announced they were dropping Unity in favor of GNOME 3. It was GNOME 3 at the time. Now we're on the GNOME 40 series. And I know what you're thinking. What happened to 4 through 39? I don't know. Instead of calling it GNOME 4, they called it GNOME 40. I don't know. I don't know why they did that. I wasn't privy to those discussions. But, yeah, no. Yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Well, anyway, this is a good time and I need to talk about Elementary / Moksha. So, Elementary is kind of like a TurboGrafx 16 of Linux desktops. While Super Nintendo and Genesis are fighting it out, the TurboGrafx 16 was chilling in the background, to quote the angry video game nerd. But yeah, no. And if you're wondering what Moksha is, it's a fork of Elementary that runs on Bodhi Linux. And I wanted to mention that because Bodhi is probably the most prominent distro that uses Elementary, but it doesn't use Elementary, it uses Moksha. I have used Bodhi. It's not a bad distro, but it's a pretty unique little desktop environment. And if you do want to use it, I suggest Bodhi. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Major distros. We have Debian, which Ubuntu is based on, and Ubuntu, which is based on Debian. And then we have Linux Mint, based on Ubuntu, which is based on Debian. Yeah, there's a whole lineage here between Debian, Ubuntu, and Linux Mint. Now, there is an edition of Linux Mint that is based on Debian directly. It's called Linux Mint Debian Edition. So, if you prefer how Debian works over Ubuntu, you can use Linux Mint Debian Edition instead. Yay! But yeah, these three distros have a lineage. And these are like major distros. These are like huge. Debian more so on servers than on desktops, but I did want to mention it because it's the mother of these two. Well, mother of this one, grandmother of this one, I guess. Then we have like Fedora. Okay, Fedora is what I'm running on the laptop that's recording this right now. And it's kind of the community-supported edition of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and a lot of people, joke about it being like the testing ground of RHEL features. And it kind of is a little bit, but it's a really good distro. I really like it because it's, it's smooth, it works great. I just really like it. Then we have OpenSUSE. I've never used OpenSUSE extensively. And OpenSUSE is kind of in the same boat as Fedora in that there's such a thing as SUSE Enterprise Linux. So, yeah, but Red Hat Enterprise Linux, SUSE Enterprise Linux, they're both big enterprise distributions. You don't need to worry about them. They're not for you. They're for massive businesses. And then, and of course, Ubuntu is primarily maintained by Canonical as well. Canonical, you know, they sell support for Ubuntu, so Ubuntu is technically an enterprise distro as well. They just don't separate it like Red Hat does with Fedora, and whoever owns SUSE Enterprise Linux does with OpenSUSE. I think it was Novell at some point, but I think they sold it. I'm pretty sure they sold it. And then, of course, we have SteamOS, which runs on the Steam Deck. I do highly recommend the Steam Deck. I do all my gaming on Steam Deck nowadays. It's really good. And SteamOS is, of course, based on Arch. You might have heard the meme, BTW, I use Arch, because Arch users won't shut up about using Arch. Technically, I use Arch too, because I use SteamOS. I use SteamOS BTW. But yeah, and the reason SteamOS is on here is because it's on the Steam Deck, and it's also on Lenovo Legion Go S, and I think there was an Anbernic handheld that used SteamOS as well. But yeah, I'd say that's a pretty major distro, because it is starting to bring Linux into the mainstream in a way that other distributions didn't before. And then, of course, you have Arch. This is a rolling release distro. What's a rolling release? Well, let's say, for example, Ubuntu. Ubuntu has different versions, like you have 22.04, and then when 24.04 comes out, you have to upgrade or reinstall to get 24.04. Well, Arch, you install it once, and it just keeps updating forever and ever and ever. All right? Hopefully until the computer breaks, right? Doesn't always happen like that, because Arch is a bleeding edge distro. And sometimes when you're on the bleeding edge, you bleed. So, yeah, not recommended for beginners, especially because it can be a little difficult to set up, especially if you're doing it the Arch way. Now, I've heard people say, oh, once you get it down, you can install it really quickly. Yeah, but, like, most people don't have the patience for that. There are Arch installers if you really want to use it and you don't want to go through all that rigmarole. I haven't used any of those. I've never used Arch itself extensively, but it is a major distro that you might have heard of, so I wanted to mention it. Slackware. Slackware is here because it's really fucking old. It is the oldest Linux distro that's still being maintained. It's older than me by literally a couple weeks, and I'm 32. So, yeah. Slackware is old. It had quite a few distributions that were based on it, and then I think all those switched over to, like, Debian or something. I don't think there's actually that many distros based on Slackware anymore, but it was a very prominent distro because it was one of the first. Actually, funny story. So Slackware is based on what was that distro? It wasn't MCC Interim. MCC Interim was the I'm gonna have to look this up on my phone. This is gonna bother me. MCC Interim Linux was like the first ever Linux distro. Okay, let's see here. Slackware based on. Come on, there we go. Soft landing system. Okay, SLS. Okay, so Slackware was a fork of SLS because Patrick Volkerding, the guy who created Slackware, didn't like the direction SLS was going, and SLS kind of died out. So he made Slackware, which is directly based on SLS. Ian Murdoch, the founder of Debian, he saw SLS, thought it sucked, and also made a new distro. But this one wasn't based on SLS. He just kind of made it from scratch. And also, Red Hat was founded to make another Linux distribution because they didn't like SLS. So, like, 3 of the oldest fucking distributions started out because they didn't like SLS. Actually, I'm not sure about that Red Hat one. Don't quote me on that one. But I know for a fact Debian and Slackware were created because they didn't like SLS. I don't know what the guy who created SLS was doing. I don't know if he was like an asshole or something. But that's funny to me. Alright, so good distros to start with. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, oh, this is too much choice. What do I do? I'm going to give you 4 to try out. Motherfucker. I'm going to give you 4. Okay? First up on my list, Linux Mint. Now, if you saw the first episode of this here Linux, You Can Linux show, you know I kind of had some problems with Linux Mint, okay? I kind of had some problems. That doesn't mean it's not a good distribution. Definitely try it out, okay? It's... Alright, to me, Linux Mint always felt just a little bit hacky and such. But, you know, I do rate it for beginners. You know, if you're just starting out, you're the kind of person who just wants to use a computer, Linux Mint, great choice. And I also wanted to do something here. So Linux Mint does come with Cinnamon for the flagship version. Okay. Now if we go to linuxmint.com and we go to download, well, here you can see LMD 6. Can you get LMD with alternative desktops? If we go to download here, okay, there's 3 editions. You can have Cinnamon, XFCE, or Mate. So you don't have to stick with Cinnamon if you don't like it. Does LMD come with... Okay, so you can only get Cinnamon with LMD. I'm assuming you can install others, other desktops if you really want to. Linux Mint used to come with KDE as well. There used to be a KDE edition, but they dropped that for whatever reason. Okay, next up we have Ubuntu. So Ubuntu, I've heard it said that Linux Mint is like a fully furnished house, and then Ubuntu was like, you know, a house that's mostly finished. You got to put in some lights, you got to put in some furniture and stuff. I don't really feel that. I kind of disagree with that. I feel like Ubuntu's just fine out of the box. It just doesn't have some of the extra super nice tools that Linux Mint has. Like Ubuntu doesn't have a time shift by default. If you want time shift, you have to install it yourself. And time shift is like how do I explain this? It's like system snapshots. Like if something happens with your machine, you can just roll back to a snapshot or whatever. You know, it doesn't have like as nice of an update manager, you know. But, you know, Ubuntu's still a fine choice. There are some things that Ubuntu's done that I don't agree with. That's why I don't use Ubuntu. I'm not one for snap packages, and we'll get into that in a later slide. And snaps are a canonical thing, so they're all over Ubuntu. But you know, not a bad choice. Not a bad choice. And if we go over to the Ubuntu website, I believe it's ubuntu.com. Yeah! Go away. Okay. Alright, if you do use Ubuntu, I don't recommend using the interim releases. So, what Ubuntu does is, every 6 months, in April and October, they release a new version. Now, every 2 years in April, they'll release what's called a long-term support release. And that release is good for 5 years. That's supported for 5 years. However, in between those, they have what are called interim releases. Next LTS release will be April 2026, so April next year. Okay. But currently the current LTS is 24.04. Let me see, where can I... There we go. So the default experience is GNOME, right? And here you have some flavors. We have Edubuntu, which I believe also uses GNOME, but it comes with extra education software bundled. Lubuntu comes with LXQt. Ubuntu Budgie comes with the Budgie desktop, as you're seeing here. Ubuntu Cinnamon comes with the Cinnamon desktop, which, normally, Linux Mint thing, but Ubuntu has a flavor for it. Ubuntu Chillin', this is a weird one. This is a Chinese language distribution for, it's for Chinese users. And I don't know much about this one because I don't speak Chinese. And it's pronounced Chillin', not Kailin. It's Chillin', I think. Somebody who speaks Chinese is going to come across this video and be like, "Oh my god, you butchered my language," and I'm sorry. I don't speak Chinese. We have, of course, Ubuntu Mate, with the Mate desktop. Ubuntu Studio is for content creation. It uses XFCE. It also comes with a low latency kernel. I don't know what that is or does. I just know it comes with one. Sorry. But yeah, it just comes pre-bundled with a bunch of stuff. And then we have Ubuntu Unity, which is, of course, the flavor with the Unity desktop. And then we have Xubuntu, which comes with XFCE. I should mention, the LTS releases of mainline Ubuntu, that is, with the GNOME desktop, are good for 5 years. The flavors are good for 3 years on an LTS. Now, that's just for like the desktop software, as far as I'm aware. You still get security updates. I think, don't quote me on that. In fact, assume that you don't. But if you have a flavor installed, just know, plan to upgrade every 2 years. All right. And you don't have to upgrade right when the new version comes out. You can wait for the point release. What's a point release? Well, that's basically a refresh of the ISOs that comes with all the updates. And when that first point release is released, that fixes a lot of like bugs and such that were found when the OS was initially released, because they can't plan for every instance of a computer, right? They can't plan for every user. So, other users kind of contribute and, say, hey, I found a bug, and then they fix it, and that's the fixes, right? And generally, your computer will tell you when the upgrade is available, and they wait until the point release to tell you to upgrade. All right. I think I've yapped enough about Ubuntu. Then we have Fedora. Okay. I think it's not Fredora. Getfedora.org. Yeah, there we go. So Fedora also releases a new version every 6 months. The thing with Fedora is there are no LTS releases. Every release is good for 9 months, so you do have to for a year. every release is good for a year. So you can skip versions. So like right now, the latest release is Fedora 42. Fedora 43 should be released later this month. So if you want to try out Fedora, you might want to wait until Fedora 43 is released, but you can wait. They release basically every April and October, like Ubuntu, and the reason is because they're following the GNOME release schedule. I don't think they release in April and October. I think they release in March and November, and that gives them time to, or maybe not. I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah. So, yeah. The other annoying thing with Fedora, I do like Fedora, but this is another annoying thing they do. They force you to restart your computer when you do an update, which other Linux distros don't force you to do unless there's a kernel update. But I don't know. I was annoyed by it at first, but one, I'm used to it now, and two, maybe they're right. Maybe they're in the right on this, because, like, and I want to make this clear, right? It doesn't, like, shut off your computer for you. It doesn't have a countdown timer. It just, when the update's done, and you need to shut off your computer, but you do it at your leisure, right? Ubuntu does this too when there's, like, a kernel update. Linux Mint does it too. Every distro does it, right? When there's a kernel update, you have to restart your computer. They just don't do it for other updates. Fedora does it for every update. And again, they might be right. But Fedora has a lot of what they call spins. I think there's a page I can go to. I should mention, Fedora Workstation is the one that comes with GNOME. KDE Plasma comes with KDE Plasma, of course. I do shorten it to KDE, but the actual desktop itself is called Plasma. And there's actually an alternative KDE desktop called KDE Liquid that I haven't heard of anybody actually using, but it exists. But yeah, if you see KDE Plasma, yeah, that's KDE. Just that's the KDE desktop. Just use it. But yeah. They do have Fedora KDE alongside Fedora Workstation now. It's not just a spin. But let me see if I can... There's got to be a way to get to... maybe if I click here. Ah, spins. Okay. Okay. Well, anyway. Okay, so we have the XFCE desktop. We have Cinnamon, Mate plus Compiz, i3 tiling window manager. That's more of an advanced thing. I wouldn't recommend starting out with that. If you're interested, look it up and see if that's something you want. I should mention oh, for fuck's sakes. Okay. So, oh my god. Okay, so i3 runs on X11. And then there's the Sway tiling window manager, which runs on Wayland. It's basically the same thing, but on Wayland. I say basically the same thing. I've never used either of these, so it might work pretty differently, but I'm pretty sure I heard that the Sway developer wanted to make i3, but for Wayland. Then we have both LXQt and LXD. We have Sugar on a Stick, which, if you don't know what the Sugar desktop is, remember the one laptop per child initiative? Yeah, that's the interface that this is. If you've ever seen a picture of somebody using that, that's this. This is so you too can have that. It's more for education than anything else. And then you have Budgie. Oh my god! And then you have KDE Mobile Desktop. Is that for x86? And then you have Cosmic Desktop. This is not ready for prime time. So the Cosmic Desktop is a fork of GNOME that Pop! OS is doing. You might have heard of Pop! OS. I haven't covered it, but it's basically there's a computer manufacturer named System76, and they make Pop! OS. I don't have anything to say about it one way or the other. It might be good, it might be bad. And I'll probably cover it at some point. But this is their doing. This is the Cosmic. But as far as I know, that's still an alpha. That's not ready for prime time. I don't know what the fucking Miracle Desktop is. Okay. KDE Plasma Mobile. So this is for like phones, right? Yeah, it doesn't say. Okay. Although originally geared towards phones, this touch-friendly interface works very well on tablets and 2-in-1 laptops. Oh, okay. Well, I don't have a tablet or 2-in-1 laptop that works on x86. So, yeah, maybe we'll try that sometime. See how fucked up it is. Okay, and then Cosmic. It doesn't mention that it's an alpha, basically. Yet, I wouldn't try this one. This one's, as far as I know, and this may have changed, as far as I know, this one is not ready for prime time. So, unless you want to test Cosmic, maybe avoid this one. Now, what the fuck is Miracle Window Manager? Okay, this is yet another tiling window manager. Yeah. Yeah, again, this is, kind of for more advanced users. If you're interested, you can look it up and see if it's something you're interested in trying. But, yeah, I wouldn't recommend just randomly starting out and blowing away your only computer on it. And finally, we have MX Linux. It's not a major distro. So, once upon a time, there was a distro called Simply Mepis. And it kind of died out. Now, there was this other distro called Antix that was for really low-powered computers. And they combined their efforts to create MX Linux. And they call it a midway distro, but it's super light. Their flagship is XFCE, but they do have others. Yeah, XFCE, KDE, and Fluxbox. Fluxbox is the super lightweight thing that most people don't use, so I haven't covered it, but I will probably be covering it when I do cover Antix. If you look at the channel, there is an MX Linux episode. It's just called MX Linux. That's because it's kind of a pilot episode. I recorded the footage first and then did a voiceover. And, yeah, I would like to revisit this at some point. But no, I recommend this because if you are one of those people who has a problem and you can trace it back to systemd, this distro does not use systemd. So, and it's not that hard to use for a beginner. So, yeah, you can choose between XFCE, KDE, and if you really want to, you can use Fluxbox. So yeah. This is a pretty good distro, and it's kind of one that a lot of people like. I should also mention Antix. This is kind of like a last resort if you have like an old netbook. When you install this, make sure the lid closes and it goes to sleep. Because that was my deal breaker back when I tried this on an old netbook. But you might have, actually, I didn't look to see if there was a setting for that. Check and see if there's a setting first before you try anything else. but this might work for you. And I do respect the proudly anti-fascist thing they got going on here. So yeah, but I don't recommend this unless your computer's like really low powered. Try MX first if you're a beginner. Okay. Shift F5. And all right, so how do we get software onto these computers? Most of your software comes from repositories provided by your distro or Universal Package Formats repo. I'll get onto Universal Package Formats in a second, but generally, stuff will come from, like, if you're using Ubuntu, it'll come from Ubuntu repositories. On Fedora, you might hear somebody say to enable the Copr repositories. That's just an alternate repository that has a bunch of like proprietary stuff that they don't want to distribute with the mainline Fedora stuff, right? And you can get like the NVIDIA drivers from that and all that. But yeah, it's you just get most of your software from that. If you're using a universal package format like Flatpak, Snap, and AppImage that I list below, well, not necessarily AppImage, but Flatpak and Snap. Flatpak you're going to usually get from FlatHub, and you can use different repositories from FlatHub, but FlatHub is the main one that everybody uses. And then Snap, you use snapcrafters.io. It's possible to create other Snap repositories. Nobody has, as far as I can tell. Need a little drinky. Nobody has, as far as I can tell. And I think that's partly because Snap is seen as basically a canonical thing. Right? That's an Ubuntu thing that people think that's an Ubuntu thing. But yeah. And I gotta say, I don't really like snaps. So anyway, most of your software will come from those repositories. Now, if you do need to go out and download something, I check your repositories first, because that is software like compiled specifically for your version of the operating system. But if you do need to go out and find a package to install, if you're on something Debian-based, such as Debian, Ubuntu, Linux Mint, and that goes for the one based on Ubuntu and the one based on Debian, you're going to use .deb packages. The Fedora world uses .rpm. So anything based on Fedora, they're going to use .rpm. OpenSUSE also uses RPM. I'm not sure what Arch uses. And Slackware, it's a common myth that Slackware has no package manager. Their package manager just doesn't handle dependencies, so it's harder to install software, apparently. I haven't really used Slackware extensively. And what's a package manager? It manages all the packages you got. It installs packages too. There you go. In the Debian world, we generally use apt, APT, stands for Advanced Package Tool, and Fedora uses DNF currently. Used to use Yum, but I'm pretty sure that's been phased out. And then, of course, you've got the universal packages like Flatpak, Snap, and AppImage. AppImages are pretty much standalone. I think there are repositories for them, and there are ways to like make them act like other installed programs. But it's like when you install a program for Windows and you just open up the exe file. AppImages kind of work like that by default. Flatpak and Snap, if your distro doesn't support Flatpak or Snap, and I mean you can't install the tool you need to install Flatpak or Snap, it's not worth using, okay? Fedora comes with Flatpak enabled by default. Ubuntu comes with Snap enabled by default. And if you want to install Flatpak on on Ubuntu, it's sudo apt install Flatpak. If you want to install Snap on any other distro, it's, you know, whatever, install snapd. Right? Very easy to get those up and running. Again, I'm not a fan of snaps. I won't get into that here. I prefer Flatpaks. And I only occasionally use app images. But yeah, I already mentioned, you know, FlatHub uses Snapcraft. Flatpak uses FlatHub, and app images don't even need to be installed. I would like to mention, though, you might have noticed when I was looking at Fedora here, there are Atomic desktops. Ah, shit. Silverblue uses GNOME, Kinoite. Fuck! Kinoite uses KDE. And I didn't know there was a Budgie and Cosmic one. I think I heard about the Sway one. But yeah. So what are these? These use containers. You use Flatpaks for them. And I think you can also use Docker. I think I've used Docker before, but I've not recently. But yeah, like it says here, a previous version of your system is always kept around just in case. So, this might be something to look into. If your computer is meant to be public, like if you're working in like a education setting, and you have some laptops or something that aren't being used anymore, and you want to breathe new life into them, this is a decent way to do it. I mean, you know, it's kind of foolproof, a little bit, maybe. Now, there is actually a distro called Proteus Kiosk that obviously I've never used because I have no need for a kiosk, but I've actually seen it used at a library once, and I thought that was pretty cool. Actually, is that even still around? Proteus Kiosk. Yeah! Proteus Kiosk. Of course, this does have like a mainline Proteus, I'm pretty sure. They do have pricing. So this is actually a company, Polish company, in fact, that runs this 2014 to 2025. I don't know if because I'm pretty sure this is like, at the very least, Proteus is older than Proteus Kiosk. So, But hey, little bonus for you. Sorry, this is supposed to be like for beginners and people who don't know much about Linux, but I just couldn't help it but derail myself. Now, you might be wondering, what about my Windows software? Okay, so Proton and Wine do exist, and they've gotten pretty good. But don't just assume they'll work. That is a foolish thing to do. Because I've heard it said that Wine is a hack, and it kind of is. You know, it's... What does Wine do? Well, it's not an emulator. Nobody will get that joke that watches this video. But, no, it translates Windows system calls into Linux system calls. So, that enables you to run Windows software on Linux, hopefully, if it works. Proton is a Valve thing, but there are like, and like Valve have like described Proton as not a fork of Wine, but more of a distribution of Wine. So the way this works is, okay, I'm not just going to describe how to use Wine or Proton, but if you have a Steam Deck, which I do, Proton is the compatibility layer that lets you run a lot of games very flawlessly. sometimes even better than on Windows. So, yeah, it's gotten pretty good, but don't just assume you're going to be running Adobe Photoshop on it, okay? I can make no guarantees that anything you run will work on Linux, okay? All bets are off, okay? But while you can try that, one thing you can do is see if your software is available for Linux. A lot of people are surprised at how much is on Linux. There's Spotify on Linux. I don't know why you'd use Spotify. Spotify is the fucking devil. But there is a Spotify app for Linux. Or at least there was. I don't know if they ever dropped that. I haven't used Spotify in a really long time because they're the fucking devil. Like I'm whimsically evil, okay? They're evilly evil. Like Adolf Hitler, Margaret Thatcher, and Ronald Reagan, okay? They're terrible. What was I talking about? Jesus Christ. Okay. But yeah, no. You like Crow. Oh, Spotify being evil. And you can also use the Spotify web app if the normal app isn't an option. You can also use Chrome on Linux. Chrome is easily installable on Linux. People like I've heard of people being like, I can't. Oh fuck. That's my mic still works. Oh my god. Anyway, I've heard people be like, oh, I can't use Linux because I don't want to run Firefox. I want to run Chrome. Bitch, any browser worth using you can install on Linux. Most of them are just Chrome anyway. Like, seriously, the state of the browser market is just terrible and I hate it. And you can try Linux native alternatives. And when I say Linux native alternatives, notice I don't say FOSS or free and open source or free alternatives or whatever. Okay? Okay. What's DaVinci Resolve? DaVinci Resolve, the video editor that is kind of a darling of the video editing world right now. I think it is. I think people like that one. It's on Linux. You can use it on Linux. Guys, you can use it on Linux. You don't even have to switch anything up. Right? And even if you're not on DaVinci Resolve, let's say maybe you wanted to switch anyway. Maybe you're using Adobe not After Effects, Adobe Premiere. Let's say you're using Adobe Premiere and you're like, oh, I hate this. I want to switch to something. Switch to DaVinci Resolve. It works on Linux. You know? You don't even have to use Kdenlive. I use Kdenlive because it's free and I don't have to futz with it. You know? It's just kind of there. But, it's crazy the amount of software you have on Linux. You might even find Linux software that fills a need you didn't even know you had. Okay? So just check what's out there. You might like it. Some more things to consider. Keep trying. Don't give up because, I've had plenty of problems in the past and I've stuck with it and it's working pretty good. Okay? And even if you can't use Linux for everything, you can use it for most things. I know, like, towards the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned, hey, you can, if you're stuck on Adobe Creative Suite, just buy a new computer for that and keep your old computer and use everything else on Linux. And again, that can help, maybe that can help your work-life balance. And finally, you're always going to have computer problems, okay? Whether you're on Linux or Windows, you're going to have problems. This isn't some utopian thing where, oh, your life is going to be perfect. No, you're going to have problems still. You're probably not going to have the same problems as you did on Windows. And that's great, because Windows is terrible. And don't be afraid to ask for help. All right. Now, the Linux community does have a reputation. Sometimes it's deserved, but it depends on the individual community. I used to use Bodhi Linux on my Chromebook for a while, and then the hard drive, and then the SSD filled up, and I was like, oh my god, this is still too much, this is still using too much space. But before that, they have a Discord that is like their official method of support, and they were super friendly. Okay, people are normally super nice and helpful, and they have forums, IRC, and even Discords. Guys, they link to it. They have links to it. A lot of times in the installer, they'll have like links to where you can ask for help. Some distributions have welcome screens that come up when you first start up your new install, and they link to places where you can ask for help. Right. Finally, I do want to say, don't ask me for help in the comments, though. I can't get. That is not a good place to ask for help. One, I am not a technical person, and there's a lot more people who will know a lot better than me how to fix your issues. I definitely recommend, like, if you're using, for example, Bodhi, go on the Bodhi Discord, for example. Don't come asking me, because I'm probably not going to be able to help you. I'm sorry. Plus, if this channel ever blows up in any sort of way, probably won't, but if it ever does, it's going to get to a point where I'm already having trouble keeping up with comments because of my ADHD. Okay, I cannot guarantee a response. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so I do want to mention other good resources. First on the list, Joe Collins. Okay, he is such an inspiration to me. He inspired me to get into Linux back in the day, and inspired the confidence in me to switch full time. And he has a lot more tutorial-y videos on his channel, and he's just been a great help to me. He has gotten back to doing Linux YouTube recently, and I think that's great. And I do highly recommend his channel. And I also want to recommend The Linux Experiment. Nick is also a great guy. He does a lot of free and open source news videos, so that you can, kind of keep your finger on the pulse of the Linux community. And then, of course, we have Gardner Bryant. He used to be known as the Linux Gamer, but now his YouTube channel is just Gardner Bryant. And I think you should follow him if you have a Steam Deck. He is an invaluable resource on the Steam Deck, in particular. But he also does some, free and open source news videos, and, a lot of gaming news. So he's a good one to follow. OMG Ubuntu. There's also an OMG Linux and an OMG Chrome. OMG Chrome is kind of dead, and OMG Linux only updates sporadically. But if you go to omgubuntu.co.uk, it's mostly Ubuntu news, but I forget the guy's Joey. Joey Snedden is a pretty good guy, and he does a lot of good news. And of course, the Late Night Linux family on a podcast app near you. This is a family of podcasts including Late Night Linux, Linux Dev Time, Linux Matters, 2.5 Admins, Hybrid Cloud Show, and Linux After Dark. That's the one I'm forgetting. But yeah, go on your podcasts, go follow them, see which ones you like. I don't really listen to Hybrid Cloud Show because they're kind of dry, and that wouldn't be such a problem if I was interested in the subject matter. In fact, Linux Dev Time, sometimes I kind of tune them out because I'm not interested in what they're talking about. But generally, 2.5 admins, I'm not really an admin of any type, but they do go on a lot of interesting topics, and the 3 hosts are pretty good. But yeah, pretty good. Oh, you know what? Here, hold on. Gaming on Linux. There we go. GamingOnLinux.com. You should also check out this site. Here. Yeah. I can't believe I forgot you. I'm very sorry. All right. Yeah, this is also a good resource. Follow this website. It has a lot of, Linux gaming news. Very good. Okay. And before you go, I do want to talk about what this channel was originally for. The original idea for this channel was to make Linux stock footage that other people could use. But then I thought, nobody's gonna friggin' watch this. I mean, nobody watches this anyway. But I was like, nobody's gonna know that this exists. I might as well just, try something else and just tell people they can use the footage however they like. And that's what I did. Every video on this channel should be under a Creative Commons attribution license. I can't guarantee that it is because I think I forgot for some videos. I'm gonna have to go back and check at some point. But yeah, please, if you want to use any of the footage that I produce, please do so. I would love for you to do that. The only thing I ask, and this is an ask, not a threat, not a demand, I'm not gonna sue you. I don't even think I could sue you for this. Please don't take it out of context and use it to say that Linux sucks, okay? That's just me asking nicely. Please don't do that. But yeah, otherwise, definitely use my footage in whatever other way you like. But yeah, please like, comment, and subscribe on the video. Well, I guess you subscribe to the channel. Whatever. Please like, comment, and subscribe to help me out in the algorithm and get this video to more people. In fact, don't just like, comment, and subscribe. Also, spread this video around. I want more people to get into Linux. Alright, and you can find me on Mastodon at EvilRhoda at wandering.shop and Blue Sky at EvilRhoda, and maybe on NeoCities still, evilrhoda.neocities.org. I'm having some issues with NeoCities. They had a program called NeoCities CLI that kind of doesn't work right anymore. I'll see if that's fixed by now. But yeah, I haven't been able to use it, and I kind of relied on that. So I don't know. I might be looking for another host for a website. But yeah, I generally post my writing and stuff there. Although I've only written like 2 pieces that I posted there. The most recent one is really good. It's a little story called You Die in the Game, You Die in Real Life. It's a really good story. I'm really proud of it. Go read it. And I stream with friends on Wednesdays and Sundays. And I stream with friends every Wednesday and Saturday on Tiny Horse Entertainment. That's twitch.tv/TheTinyHorseEntertainment and youtube.com/@TinyHorseEntertainment. All right. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And also spread the video around. I'm not sure what I'm doing for my next video. It might be Bodhi Linux, actually, maybe. I've thought about that. I might be redoing MX Linux, or I might even be doing Antics. Actually, you know what? Antics is a pretty good idea. I think I'm going to go with that one. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.